Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show, broadcasting live from the fabulously fluoridated capital of Auckland, New Zealand, the island chains nation in the sunny slave South Pacific. It's not only fluoridated, it's also Fukushima irradiated, which according to the Prime Minister is good for the economy, because now everybody can get a part-time job as an incandescent light bulb. And my very special guests for this second, in fact, whoa, hold on a second. This is the second roundtable discussion we've had this week. First roundtable discussion we had was on Wednesday, discussing psychopaths with Thomas Sheridan, Jay Widener, and James Corbett. I recommend everybody, and underline that, everybody go and listen to that interview because it's freaking amazing. It's a revelation. All right, not unlike the Bible. And my very special guests today are going to be talking about a related topic called Archons, right? Which means rulers, has been talked about in the Gnostic writings, and we reference this in the psychopath discussion. So that's one element that we did touch on during the discussion about psychopaths, and now we're going to display the other side, that which is a little bit less well understood by the general public. The reason why we're doing this is because this might just be the most important sociological subject in human history. Why? Because these archontic, psychopathic entities are in control of society. And only once the methodologies, behavior, so on and so forth of these creatures is learned and educated into the populace can we actually do anything about it and bring society back under the control of those who are not ruthless criminal sociopathic scumbaggery. Now my guests are Robert Stanley, Evie Lorgen, and Cameron Day. So I would like them to introduce themselves one at a time. Evie, let's start with you. Could you please tell us who you are, what you do, and if you have a website or something of that nature, please give it a wee plug.
Okay, I'm also known as Eve Lorgen. My website is evelorgen.com. I've written 2 books. The most recent book is called The Dark Side of Cupid, about love affairs, the supernatural, and energy vampirism, which actually is a lot about what I call the energy vampirism that can take place in relationships when one of the partners is taken over or overshadowed by an entity of some sort. So you can call it a type of archontic interference, and I can go into that in more detail in the show. I also work with anomalous trauma, mostly alien abductions, MILABs, spiritual warfare, and unusual things. So that's basically what I do, and I'll let you.
And you're currently on holiday at the moment, and if there's anybody around you who's likely to make noise during the broadcast, just quietly tell them to,
Okay.
Keep quiet,
Right. Sorry about that.
All right, and let's go to Robert Stanley. Robert, please introduce yourself and give your website a plug if necessary.
Well, hello, Vinny. Nice to talk to you, finally. My name's Robert Stanley. I'm an author, talk show host, and I'm also a special correspondent for America's Morning News out of Washington, D.C. So I've written a couple books, and my website is unicusmagazine.com. It's spelled UNICUS magazine.com.
Mm-hmm. And what is it that you actually specialize in terms of information?
UFOs, extraterrestrials.
Okay. And Cameron Day as well. Cameron, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Vinny. It's great to be here.
All right. Now, please just let us know just a little bit about yourself and your website if possible.
Sure. So my website is ascensionhelp.com. That's ASCENSIONHELP.com. I specialize in helping people to get clear, to let go of suppressed hidden traumas or blatant traumas, whatever the trauma might be, whatever the hang up or blockage is. I help them to address it, clear it, and to connect more deeply with their true self, otherwise known as the higher self or the divine inner self.
Okay, so let's get started by answering the simple question by which we're going to preface this conversation, this roundtable discussion. What is an Archon? Who would like to answer that first?
I'll answer it. This is Eve Lorgen. The Archon is actually originally a notation found in the Nag Hammadi library tractates of the Gnostic literature, which are rulers of some sort that interfere with humanity. They're actually part of Sophia, who is the Eon who plunged and became our living planet. But the Archons are notorious for copycatting and interfering and mind parasiting humans in such a way that they cause us to deviate from our divine potential and get stuck on religious ideology, which really throws us off. So really one of the main, signatures of the Archons is religious ideology and certain kinds of mind patterns. So this is really apparent in psychopaths, and what I see with what I call the hosted and possessed or partially possessed individuals that do energy vampirism. So that's really a short end of it. So maybe somebody else might have a comment about what their view is on Archons.
Robert, I'd like to hear what your take is on this.
Sure. I have an article with photographs of one specific type of Archon that seems to be misidentified by other researchers in the field. They said specifically there was one that was reptilian and another one that looked like an amoeba, like an embryo. It actually looks more like an amoeba to me, at least the pictures that I have. So if you go to unicusmagazine.com and click on articles, it'll be the second link down, and it says meet our covert controllers, the Archons.
So did they have an actual physical presence, or is this an ethereal entity that we're dealing with here, a non-physical entity?
Yes, it's apparently a non-physical entity that affects our physical nature through our consciousness. It influences us to do harm to ourselves or others so we can feed off the negative energy generated in the process.
So it actually has a sort of like a nutritional requirement in that regard. It needs negative energy to survive, whereas that's the antithesis to humanity, who needs positive energy to survive, correct?
Right. It's parasitic. It is a parasite amoebas are technically considered a parasite, a genus of parasite. And just briefly, I wanted to share something with you I found recently, which actually confirms what I've suspected for a while. Is Sir Fred Hoyle? He was an astronomer, astrophysicist at the Royal Astronomical Society in 1971. He said that human beings are simply pawns in the game of alien minds that control our every move. They're everywhere in the sky and on the sea and in the earth. It's not an alien intelligence from another planet. It's actually from another universe, which entered ours at the very beginning and has been controlling all that has happened since. So I don't think I've been saying they're not from here, and they're just trying to survive. So this is why they do what they do, and they're becoming exposed more and more as we talk about this and show the pictures of them. It's really apparent that evil is an infection that is affecting a lot of people, obviously, and that's why we're having this conversation.
Now, one of the discussions we had with psychopaths yesterday is that they all agreed, the panelists agreed, that
Yes.
this is capable of infecting people. Now,
Yes.
I wondered, and this is my question: is the physical presence of an Archon required for the infection, or is it possible that it can be digitally transcribed? An Archon could be a radio show host or something of that nature and actually infect its audience.
Well, a lot of people, and including extraterrestrials, are infected, whether they know it or not, and therefore they are affecting people around them. You see, so even if some of these amoeba-like entities attach themselves, let's just say to me, then I can in turn have an effect on people around me, which causes them to generate, like I said, I'm either hurting myself or others around me, and that generates the food that they feed off. The movie The Matrix was probably the best metaphor for what's going on here. And like I said, these things probably in my opinion, came from outside our universe, and once they got here, they had to survive. So they figured a way to feed off of negative energy generated by us. Yeah, there's a picture of one. That's an infrared picture from the 1950s, I believe. Yeah.
Well, I'm putting these pictures back on the television. Those in the radio audience, unfortunately, you won't be able to see what we're looking at here. But essentially, what we are viewing is, as you said, it looks like a sort of a floating bacteria in the
Right.
background. How exactly does it attach? Because this would imply that it actually is not just a non-physical entity, that it actually does have a physical presence. And all physical entities, as far as I know, have they have nutritional requirements or environmental factors. Like, do you know what their weaknesses are? You know, would they be poisoned by arsenic like we would, or would they be poisoned by cyanide or something of that nature? Or are these things considered nutrients to these creatures?
Not that I know of. Like I said, as far as I know, all they feed off of is negative energy coming out of our body in the form of a specific frequency of light. Our bodies are constantly emitting light. The DNA actually emits light, but when we're damaged or traumatized, we actually emit a different frequency of light. I guess William Reich was familiar with this, and so he called it orgon or DOR. So he's delineated between one very positive symbiotic energy as opposed to a very negative parasitic energy that these things seem to be attracted to. So William Reich was using these cloudbusters this is when these things started to show up. And apparently, they don't like positive energy, obviously laughter. They don't like laughter, any kind of happy, positive emotions. They really don't like that at all. And they really don't want to be exposed either, by the way.
Does it hurt them?
Well, I don't know if they have feelings in that regard. I think it scares them because they're really just on a survival mode, in my opinion. They don't belong here. The creator of this universe didn't actually create them. They just found a way into this universe and started to spread the infection. And actually, there's a lot of the destruction and the insanity that followed was, there was no immunity to it. People in this universe really had never seen anything like that before. So it took quite a while before they started to actually take action and protect themselves and start to rehabilitate this universe and the various all the life forms in it.
Cameron, what's your take on this?
Well, to answer your question in a little more detail about their nutrient needs, they do feed on energy. They're in a plane or an energetic density that's slightly more refined than ours. But when you're in that density, you still have a perceived physicality. So you can interact with these beings, for instance, in your dream state. And often many people do. They just aren't aware of what's going on. And so what feeds them is our energy. Often fear is their most preferred food source. Because when we're afraid, we're literally leaking our power, and we're usually giving that power to someone else. So that gives them a bit of dominance over us.
Can I perform an analogy here? I presume you're familiar with sun gazing. There's certain people who are capable of staring into the sun, usually in the morning when it's not quite strong enough, and the amount of photons that come through the iris are actually capable of sending an electric charge along the optic nerve and indeed fuel the body without the need for ingesting and converting liquids or foods. And so, in essence, they survive via the emission of light. And is this precisely the same mechanism, but perhaps a little bit different, that the Archons survive on, the emission of the light of fear or something of that nature? Is there some form of a prism-type spectrum, like in Pollyanna crystals or something like that? You shoot a motion through a crystal and it'll come out with certain things because... Who was that Japanese scientist? I forget his name.
Emoto.
Yeah. So he's proven that just an emotion can actually have an effect on the crystalline structure of water. What do you say to all of that?
Well, yes, those are all aspects of it. Now, the key thing is that these beings actually harvest this energy and they process it even to remove any purity, not impurity, but purity that might still be within that energy that you emitted, that we've emitted. And essentially they treat humanity, they treat all third density life like we are as their cattle, as their food source. So they have mercilessly squeezed humanity for eons of time to produce as much pain, suffering, war, trauma, fear, death, etc. as possible so that we can release that energy in a form that's good for them. Because if we were all acting peacefully towards one another and loving one another, laughing with each other, working together to build a positive world, they would have no food source. We would be literally immune to them at that point.
John Lennon, bang! Martin Luther King, bang! This is what we're talking about, isn't it?
Correct.
Yes.
And they all said together, live together peacefully in harmony and love one another, and that's why they've been killed.
Right, because that goes against what their food production needs are. They need us to be killing each other, fighting with each other.
Okay.
Or just generally irritated, like we see the media is constantly doing to us right here in the States right now. It's just horrendous, but and it's constant too.
All right. Well, we're constantly surrounded by what appears to be stupidity, and it doesn't. Stupidity itself, just in and of itself, is not enough good an explanation for me, because it's too well organized to come
Correct.
together by accident. We'll be right back after the break at the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. Don't you go anywhere, folks.
No matter where you live, globalism affects you. Did you know that the Vinny Eastwood Show has more subscribers than New Zealand Herald TV and is New Zealand's most popular YouTube news channel, where warm-hearted humour and a list of awesome guests talk about crucial issues which the mainstream media ignore? A show where you, the listener, can phone up with questions, comments and suggestions of guests. Vinny is building a hub to connect truthers with raw information they need to become active. He can help you gain further skills such as website building, producing audio and video, and creating revenue streams in your own multimedia environment. Because Vinny supports such a wide range of people in the truth movement, he is not government or corporate backed and relies entirely on your donations. Give now, give generously, or subscribe for $10 a month for access to ad-free video archives. Just visit the VinnyEastwoodShow.com and click donate.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show. We're broadcasting live on American Freedom Radio 5 days a week from 5 till 7 Central. That's 3 till 5 Pacific. Excuse. 6 till 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you happen to be in Greenwich Mean Time, it is 11 till 8 o'clock in the morning, so that's good for conspiracy theorists who are generally up all night freaking out about them being exterminated by ruthless criminal sociopathic scumbaggery. And in New Zealand, if you have a job, we are broadcasting live from 10 a.m. till midday, so wear your headphones and keep it secret from your boss, because bosses generally don't like this kind of talk, because it doesn't bow to authority, which has no justification. Alright, and my very special guests for this roundtable discussion are Robert Stanley, Eve Lorgen, and Cameron Day. Now, heading back to this, we were talking about the energy requirements of these creatures, and what we've determined is that they feed off of light energy, and that is broadcasted from your DNA, which is manifested via certain things. Now, I recall what was his name, Michael Tsarian, saying that there is a vibrational difference between emotions, meaning that if you have, say, for example, a waveform, so if it's bumping up and down, you know, you've seen those little things with audio files and things like that. Some of them are really jutty, and they come out like really fast and hard, sort of like dance music, doop 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 doop. And then there's another frequency that is far more long, slow waveform, which is like boom, boom, boom. Now, the slow waveform is the frequency of fear, and what happens is you've got your DNA strands, and for each boom, boom, it'll actually activate certain parts of your DNA. The higher the frequency, the more closer it is to love, the more hits it actually has along your DNA strand along at that point. At least this is what Michael Tessarian has said, and I think he believes. Now, how does this relate? And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this research at all, but how does this relate frequency, vibration, and the emission of light to Archons? Who would like to take that one?
Okay, since nobody else is speaking up, I would have to say that you're right. That they do have some sort of tendrils. Well, with the pictures that you just show, they're not in their feeding state. They're moving. Castaneda's called them the flyers. They look like he said they look like flat, dark fish. So people do see them occasionally with their eyes. And they apparently one of the psychologists that contact me about schizophrenics that he was working with in a clinical setting, including the prisons, said that these things, he could hear them emitting, or their patients, he said, were actually hearing them doing like just an incredibly loud screeching noise. So that might have something to do with it. And there was also a sort of an electricity involved. So they're energetic. Obviously, everything emits frequencies of, on various levels. And, the other thing was weird. He said that people who were addicted to like methamphetamines were seeing these things, and even guys that didn't even know each other were reporting the same thing. So they were somehow, that had altered their consciousness to a state where they were actually elevated, or however you want to call it, where they could peer into that realm. And it's not, the veil between us is really not that thick, as far as I know.
No, it's actually extremely thin. In fact, they operate in that secrecy because we can't perceive them with our very limited light spectrum that our eyes perceive. If we could see just a little bit above that, we'd see them floating around. Now, people that have trained themselves to see auras can see them as well. The easiest way I found is to be looking at, let's say, a building or a wall that's fairly light colored, and then just let your focus be far away on that wall, and then allow people to walk in between you. So say you're at a public place. So you would look at a building maybe across the street, and then as people are walking by, you'll see an energy emission around them. And on some people, you'll see a black fuzz. It almost looks like a black smoke that's following them around. It's kind of lashed onto them. You can sometimes even see it on their cars as they drive around. And that's essentially a feeder connected to that person. Now, those little low-level feeders, though, they're sending and transmitting energy up to collection centers for their higher ups to do it. I mean, those are essentially the automatons, like the little amoeba type guys that Robert showed the pictures of before. But those guys do the main low-level feeding. They feed the energy up to a higher level. They're all very hierarchical. That's another aspect of these beings. They're very much like a machine consciousness, like an artificial intelligence type of a collective.
Kind of like the Borg.
Yeah,
Kind of like the Borg.
I'd like to add a comment, is that some of people see the tentacles like an octopus-like entity within someone when they're hosting something like that. And the tentacles can reach out energetically and pull in energy from other people and affect and manipulate energy from other people. And I also wanted to just reiterate and validate the fact that methamphetamine addicts have reported perceiving reptilians and also becoming possessed by them, and that something to do with methamphetamine will raise their consciousness frequency, brain frequency, so that they're able to perceive and interact with that realm and have that realm actually interact with them and take like partial possession or possession cases. And this is something that Barbara Bartholic found many years ago with working with people where there was waves of UFO activity with reptilian abductions with people who did methamphetamine. They were more heavily attacked by these energies and entities.
Well, in fact, this is something that I find quite interesting, and I learned about this quite a number of years ago before I even woke up, about methamphetamine users being able to see these, essentially demons. It was called the devil's drug by a number of people. And of course, it was invented by, I believe, the Empire of Japan, and they gave it to their pilots during flying missions and things of that nature, and they found that their pilots started to go crazy and crash themselves into US ships, and these became known as kamikaze pilots. And what occurs to me, and in fact, I tried meth once. I'm going out on a limb here and saying this. I was writing a script about a Santa impersonator who was on methamphetamine, and I wanted to know what it was actually like. And but I didn't want to do it so that I would get addicted. So I decided to do it with somebody who was really badly addicted and actually in a real bad state because of it. He was injecting, and he proceeded to tell me crazy things, completely and utterly insane things, that there's 11 dimensions of reality and he's the only one on Earth that can perceive all of them correctly, that he had the Auckland's chief of police, drug squad and Satan locked in his basement with surgical tools to see who would come out on top. You know, his knees were juddering so strongly that the fridge in the kitchen was literally rocking back and forth kind of thing. And the reason why I decided to do it with him is because I would be able to see instantly where I would go had this become a habit for me. I only wanted to try it for once in terms of the research. And this became perhaps one of my early awakening experiences of just how bad this drug really is for people. Ironically enough, it was the most calming and soothing experience for me that I've actually ever had in my life. I'm normally thinking about 11, 12, 13 different things all at the same time, you know, like a rogue star emitting sunspots or whatever. And it got compressed to a singularity. And what I found interesting about that is because it's compressed to a singularity, it means that you can only really focus on one thing at a time. And I think that's possibly the reason why these people go so completely insane, is because if you've only got one train of thought and you're not able to correct or incorporate other things within it, if you start going down a wrong path, there's nothing to stop you.
Or you may have been having, like with people that take Ritalin, it's not for everybody, but people that are diagnosed as allegedly having ADD, they can't focus on anything till they take the drug, which is an amphetamine, and it helps them to focus. So everybody's different in that regard. But so I'm just saying maybe that was the reaction you were having.
Well, there was that. I tried Ritalin as well when I was in university. Somebody gave me a Ritalin pill. And I took it, and I went to work. And unlike meth, instead of actually feeling kind of peace and calm, I felt nothing. It was like everything that I was gone. I had no smiles. I had no thoughts. It was like I was a zombie.
Well, a lot of people who
never tried that again.
A lot of people on Prozac say that or Zoloft, they say that's pretty much the same thing. It's sort of effectively chemically lobotomizing them, cutting off their emotions. Some people say it's like wearing a wetsuit. You know, you can't feel the water. You know, it's like that.
Yeah, and so the reason I think that meth users and drug addicts in general tend to perceive these beings more is they are essentially like throwing chum in the water. They're saying, hey, my energy field is wide open. Come and feed. And so the predators come because they're responding to that blood in the water, or that energetic discharge through the chaos of that particular drug, messing with their brain, skewing their, essentially anchoring into third density reality. So if a being is doing something consciously, like for example, doing a ritual, the various indigenous tribes that do ritualistic dancing for hours and hours, they're doing that to decouple their awareness from third density to shift into a higher density. But they're doing it in a very conscious way so that they can bring back wisdom and information. But if somebody is doing it without awareness and consciousness, they're simply saying, hey, I'm wide open, come and feed.
And it's a form of abuse. Like I said before, hurt yourself or others. And it will generate this level of energy that they're looking for, they feed off of. And as Cameron was saying, they harvest it on some level, sort of like bees, you know. And I do think that that is a problem in our society, that most of us do not take this into consideration, and therefore we do nothing to protect ourselves. And I've actually learned the hard way recently that I wasn't doing enough to protect myself from these entities, because you see, they've been after me since 1985 that I know of, because I saw them and I interrupted their feeding, and well, they got really upset. I mean, on with the equivalent of their.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Back up the track.
Yeah.
You saw
Okay.
them. What did you see?
What they, to me, the analogy I would be drawing, I saw them in my mind's eye, okay, because there was a boy who was bleeding to death at the beach where I was working security in Malibu, and as I was in the room assisting him and his grandparents, first of all, somehow I knew the boy was hearing voices as I was talking to his grandmother. He's in the bedroom bleeding to death. I called the paramedics, told them, you have to get here. This is a life or death situation. You have to get here right now. And fortunately he lived. But the bottom line is, while I was in that room where the trauma occurred, he actually ran into a sliding glass door face first and smashed the whole thing open with his face. And it wasn't safety glass either. It sliced his whole face open. So as I was in the room, I was in a heightened state of awareness. Okay, it wasn't my life that was at risk, but I mean, that's really traumatic, and blood was everywhere. And of course, you know, you're just on. It's like an altered state of consciousness. I mean, it was, and I knew that the boy was hearing the voices that were telling him, "You can fly, you can fly." That's why he anyway. So. And at that moment, as I recognized what was going on, in my mind's eye, I saw them floating around the room. They looked like ticks to me, because growing up in Malibu, a lot, you know, people and our pets would get infested with these ticks. And so, actually, the pictures that we were looking at, it's similar. It's not the same. It's not exactly the same, but that was the analogy I was drawing in my mind. These are parasites. I knew that even back in 1985 as a young man. I was 25 years old, and I got thrown in the deep end of the demon pool. So anyway, and of course they started attacking me once I saw them and I knew what they were up to. They started attacking me, and actually they were attacking my solar plexus, and they've been doing that periodically over the years because I've become more and more aware of them, and I've been telling more and more people about them, especially since 2011.
Define attack. Oh wait, in fact, we don't have time. We're coming to break here. When we come back, I want to actually explore that a little further about how they actually attack you, and also during the other psychopath discussion, one thing all the panelists also agreed on: not only are these creatures infectious, but you can't fight them, and the only way to actually deal with them is to run. We'll be right back after the break at the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. Don't you go anywhere, folks. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show, the most operatic 2 hours in talk radio, right here on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Okay, now, a number of elements came out during the discussion. First thing I wanted to clarify is what we covered before we went to break was, Robert, you claimed that these entities have attacked you, or started to attack you, and have consistently started to do so. What are you talking about when you say that they're attacking you? Describe it.
It felt like I could feel it in my solar plexus. It was, the best analogy I can give you is like a tub of water. When you pull the plug, it starts draining out, except it was literally draining out of me. All the energy was draining out of me. I had no idea why it was happening. I just knew that they were somehow causing it. So like you said, my intention, or I was running on impulse, because who do you call when something like that happens? And
Ghostbusters.
Well, yeah, we call you guys, but I didn't know you then. So anyway, I ended up, it was the equinox. It was the fall equinox of September 21st, 1985. I ended up going up on top of a mountain in Malibu, sitting there as the full moon was rising and the sun was setting. I was literally, you're talking about putting the energy in your eyes. I was tilting my head back, and I could actually see the moon and the sun, one in each eye. And then at some point I stopped doing that. I was gazing into the sun as it was setting. And then I started to meditate. Like I said, this was completely on impulse. I wasn't planning this. Okay, it would have happened this way if they hadn't attacked me. So this was an unintended consequence that I tell people. I was sitting there meditating. I was using the sound Om as the carrier wave, and I was sending a beacon out through my body, through my chakras. I was just beaming this thing up into the galaxy, actually to the middle of the Milky Way. And the only thought I had that I was broadcasting was love. Because I knew that what I saw was the complete opposite of love, truly evil. What those things were doing to that boy and his grandparents was simply evil, and in my opinion. And so I was hoping that somebody, it was like an SOS for me. Okay, and I was sitting there and I'm broadcasting this, and at some point after hours of that, I got tired and I laid down on some cement. It was leftovers of a naval radar installation there on the top of the mountain, and I lay on the cement and popped right out of my body. And I went into the light, yes, actually, it was just light. Everywhere I looked, it was light, which was great because at that point, those things they could not attack me any further. But shortly after that, there was something coming towards me. I didn't know what it was. And as it got closer, I realized I could see it was a man. Now, Eve, I know you've got a picture of something like this, but...
Oh, yeah, the primordial man, yes.
The primordial man, okay. But I'd never seen that until after I talked to you. But anyway, in 1985, I'm looking at this guy, and he's standing in front of me, and he's brighter than the light around us. There's literally light coming off of him, including his eyes, like that picture that Eve has from Italy. And I'm thinking to myself, whoa, who is this? And he says to me, I'm your father. And I'm like, what? I mean, that did not make any sense. Did he do it
like in a James Earl Jones voice?
I wish he had. It might have. No, actually, Star Wars. I don't think Star Wars. Yeah, I guess Star Wars had come out. Look, no, it has. He wasn't Darth Vader. And he didn't look like my father either. Which again, none of this made sense to me. I had no context for any of this. I'm just telling you. So he started laughing, not in a sinister way, but he was laughing. He thought it was funny. I mean, in retrospect, I guess. Hey, look, I'm calling help, help, help. Help shows up, and he's like, hey, don't you remember me? I'm your father. I'm like, what? Excuse me? Makes no sense at all, right? So do you want me to, are you ready for the rest of the story, or should we go on to something else?
I say we quickly finish this vein.
Okay, because I tell this to people all the time. And anyway, so here's what happened. I went back to work. He's laughing. I snap back. I snap awake. I thought I was just having a vision, and then I was, immediately woke up from it. No, at least 3 hours had gone by based on the position of the moon now. Okay. And I knew something else had happened, but I couldn't remember what it was. I had zero memory of other than seeing him, and that was it. But so I went back to work the next morning. I go to the house and I checked just to see if the boy's still alive. I was very worried. I thought he could have died in the ambulance. So I go over there, talk to the grandparents. They're like, yeah, he lost a lot of blood, had over 300 stitches in his face, but he's going to live. I'm like, oh, okay, good. And then I gave him this message. And I really couldn't understand why I said this. You can heal the scars on his face, but unless you heal the scars on his soul, this will happen again. Now, lately, I'm starting to have some weird, vague memory of actually going back there with this guy who said he's my father. I think we actually visited him in another dimension, and we did work to get rid of the parasites. But at that point, that's when I saw the scars on his soul. And there was nothing I could do about it. Apparently, this guy with me couldn't do it or wouldn't do it either. And that's why I was compelled to deliver that message. I mean, with deep conviction, by the way. There's nothing religious about it. I was just stating as a matter of fact. And even afterwards, I'm like, why did I say that? Those poor people, he just survived a life-threatening event. Now I'm telling him they got to heal the scars on his soul. I mean, it just didn't make any sense to me at the time.
Okay. No.
Yeah.
Well, see, actually, we were talking about sexual trauma and getting rid of that yesterday.
Yes.
And indeed, this was something that came up, is that it scars you on the inside, not just physically, but it actually is a penetrating force on your very soul, and it leaves an imprint. And it is possible to heal that, except it requires extraordinary love and empathy and intense sharing, and the sharing has to go both ways. It's like your love and empathy for somebody else can actually be replicated, transmuted, and then pushed aside and then absorbed by other people, much like psychopathic scumbaggery can.
But on a positive level. You're right. That's
exactly.
very well said.
Now this reminds me as well. So, have you ever seen the Robert Rodriguez film From Dusk Till Dawn, where a bunch of criminals with I think it's Quentin Tarantino and George Clooney. They're these criminals and they escape to Mexico and they go to this bar called the Titty Twister, and unbeknownst to them, this bar is actually the very top of an ancient Incan pyramid, and it's inhabited, and all the bar staff are vampires, and they lock the door in the middle of the night. Every night they lock the door and they eat everybody inside. They steal all the shipments off of the truckers and all the bikers and everything like that, and then they open the doors again the next day for the next round of people to come in for them to feed off.
Oh my God.
Now, during one of the climaxes of the film where they were locked in a room about to come out and try and attack these vampires, one of them is a preacher who's lost his faith. And I think George Clooney says to him, if there is a hell and these sons of bitches are from it, then there's got to be a heaven, Jacob. There's got to be.
And bars actually are like a watering hole for them. Prisons are probably the most prolific area for them to get the food that they're looking for. But people's guard typically goes way down when they drink a lot of alcohol. That's why they call it spirits. This is just a way of connecting us with those demonic parasites. Yeah.
I just wanted to say something about the solar plexus and the chakras.
Yeah.
It's in my book where people reported having what I call a dark side of Cupid relationship with somebody who was a psychic or an energy vampire. A lot of times their complaints had to do with solar plexus having unusual sensations, or the entity was latching on their solar plexus, sometimes the back of their heart or their neck or the genitals. And so when you interact with one of these, like let's say hosted people or the archontic parasited partner who acts like sometimes a psychopath, except instead of just being a simple psychopath, a lot of times they have these paranormal capabilities where the entity within them could literally astral travel and connect with the other person sexually, like in their dreams or in the astral or whatever. And then they create these psychic links to them. And the psychic links are really hard to break. So they definitely link on to chakras, and that's one of their hallmarks.
Yeah, and I see that a lot in clients that I work with. The people in their lives that were the most problematic, especially if it was a relationship that was, up and down, with that person being oftentimes an abuser of alcohol or some other drug that left them open to that type of possession, that the person will have all kinds of what I call energy bridges, or some people call them cords, connected into that person, usually from the solar plexus down to the sexual center.
Now, is it possible to relieve yourself of one's infection?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, well,
Absolutely.
I mean, are we talking like exorcism here?
No, it's really a matter of, first of all, acknowledging there's a problem, right? Kind of like Alcoholics Anonymous. You have to acknowledge that you're being messed with and manipulated, and perhaps even serving these beings. And then you have to start clearing whatever traumas are in your soul, whatever pain is lurking that hasn't been healed. Get through that process. It takes a while too, and just keep chipping away at it. And the more clear you get, the more you can connect with your higher self or your divine inner self and live from that space. And then when these beings attempt to manipulate you, you'll be able to recognize sooner and sooner their presence and their energy. And you simply tell them, I'm not going to play your game. Go away.
Another trick I've learned is to say, I am sovereign. I am sovereign. I am sovereign. So be it. And they don't like that because they don't want you to be sovereign.
Well, that's kind of like the government in a lot of ways. All right. Well, okay, all
as
right.
above, so below, right?
Yeah. And as far as I'm concerned, people who work for the government and these high levels of power are so beneath the rest of us. Hence, as above, they're so below us. We'll be right back after the break, ladies and gentlemen, at the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. We want to get into this even more intensely because there are some that believe that there is a war coming, a spiritual war, and we'd best be armed to the teeth. And we'll see if we can find out from our panel here what kind of weapons that you can employ to protect yourself from infection and also to take the fight to the enemy. Back in a minute.
If you take an active interest in maintaining the optimum health and well-being of yourself and your family, the New Zealand Journal of Natural Medicine is the magazine you've been waiting for. Having taken Australia and New Zealand by storm, the New Zealand Journal of Natural Medicine is now available in the UK and Europe. Visit www.nznaturalmed.co.uk or call 01626 337 531 to order your copy now.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is now hour number 2 of the fastest 2 hours in talk radio, the Vinny Eastwood Show. It's the lighter side of genocide because in a world so full of chaos and madness and narcotic infection, if you lose your sense of humour, you'll go frickin' nuts. And my very special guests are Robert Stanley, Cameron Day, and Eve Lorgen. Their websites are, for those of you who might just be joining us, are evelorgen.com, unicusmagazine.com, and ascensionhelp.com. And all of these links and archives will be posted on the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. American Freedom Radio has not had its archives updated for a period of time, so you can get the archives for this show at the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. That's Vinny with a Y because it's the most important question, and Eastwood as in go ahead, make my news. Now, the war chest. Now, we're talking about, and it's interesting, the war chest, because you're talking about how they tend to kind of attack chakras, right? Now, this is like the solar plexus chakra, the heart chakra, that kind of thing. And you were talking about a story over the break, Robert, about how somebody was giving you counsel or something like that and removed one of these entities from you, asking if you were sovereign or something. Could you reiterate, because I didn't hear all of it?
Okay, sorry.
If you want to, unless it was a private thing.
No, it's not. Absolutely not. I'm sharing it because it's important. It's part of the human condition. I'm just part of this whole process. So on the new moon of this month, I made a commitment to doing my radio show 5 nights a week. The next day, I fell on the tennis court and fractured my wrist in 2 places. And it was not fun. It was because I felt so tired. Mentally, I was alert, but my body, my feet wouldn't move, and I was getting frustrated. So I just kind of thrust myself on the, my upper body went, and my feet didn't follow. And the next thing I know, I'm on the ground in agony. So a couple days later, I went to see the bone surgeon, and he says, you got a 50% chance of not needing surgery. Just be a good boy. I'm like, okay, fine. So I go home. I did the show that night with a psychic surgeon from the UK. And at some point in the show, I'm talking to him, and I said, would you scan me remotely and see if I'm fine? I didn't tell him I'd broken my wrist, but I wanted to see what he would say. And he says, look, okay, I want you to ask yourself a question 3 times. Am I sovereign? So I did it 3 times. And on the 3rd time, I got a no. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. Can I do it again? He said, sure, no problem. So I did it again, and I got the no. And I said, okay, I'm getting a no. And he says, well, that would explain this dark blob that's hovering over you with a tendril attached to your solar plexus. And I said, oh, God, can you please remove it? And he said, not a problem. So he went through whatever he did. And I have been feeling much better since then because the thing's been draining my energy. Now, like I said, they go out of their way to attack me or anybody who is exposing them or making their life difficult. Their survival. They feel their survival's threatened, like an animal that's cornered. Well, they're going to get extra vicious. They focus it. And actually, this infection, the best analogy I can give people is like a dog that has rabies. It goes from a loving, obedient, pet to now a severe problem because of the parasite. It becomes vicious, and you can't communicate with it, right? So that's partially what's going on with humans. If there's different levels of infection, by the way. I was still able to operate and do my work, but they were impeding me. They were trying to trip me up, and obviously they did. But I still did my show. I'm still doing my show, and I'm still doing this show. And I'm actually doing another show later this evening. So they didn't succeed. In fact, I told you, they have unintended consequences. As they've attacked, almost every time they've attacked me, somehow it's actually made me stronger. I'm more aware. I do more to protect myself or others or expose them. So that's what's going on.
Well, let's say archontic entities are, say, a representation of, for lack of a better word, Satan on this plane of existence. Are there, if there's a Satan or demon, sorry, on this plane of existence, then are there angels? Are there other entities that infect people and try to help them or give them a leg up or something of that nature?
Well, yeah, but they don't infect people because they respect free will.
Yes.
That's the main thing. You see, archontic entities use or manipulate humans in such a way that we'll use our own free will to destroy ourselves. And that's really their goal for every person, is to get that person to self-destruct in some way, shape, or form. So they're usurping our free will. Now, benevolent beings will help to guide us, perhaps inspire us, lift us up where they can, but they won't do the heavy lifting for us because, again, that would make us dependent on them. That would essentially be a free will violation. So there won't be savior ETs coming in to save the day. And in fact, if we do see a scenario like that play out at some point, then we can be fairly certain that those saviors, so-called, will actually be what you might call controlled opposition, or the false light to supposedly oppose the darkness of the archontic beings. They have a fake light, or what they call in occultism the right-hand path. So you have the left-hand path of darkness, of usurping free will, of destroying others, and then you have the right-hand path of the false light, as I call it.
Can I interject?
They have things. Go ahead.
Because you know what occurred to me there is satanic sacrifice. Because they will grab a child off the side of the street. This is why there were once upon a time so many children on milk cartons, and why there aren't anymore. Because there's just not enough frickin' milk cartons. There's that many kids being taken and sacrificed. And what's been, and this is a really horrific subject, and we touched on this yesterday. And I'm sorry for anybody who's sensitive, because just to hear about this topic can be really harsh. What they do, according to some sources, I can't verify this, is they torture the child in a ritualistic way, so that the child's fear and terror peaks at such a level that they're capable of feeding off this energy, and indeed it enriches the blood with adrenaline. And so on and so forth, so that when they murder the child, they will drink the blood and get high off it. Is that sort of what we're talking about here? Well,
that's the ultimate, let's say, dissension into evil and archontic infection. Yes. So the people that are engaging in this, the people that are, let's say, going through their levels with their secret society and quote unquote ascending to higher levels within that left-hand path, they are getting themselves more and more infected with these beings, with this infection of darkness, so that to them it becomes not only okay to do such horrible acts, but it becomes normal. It becomes part of what they are and who they are.
There's also a benefit, Cameron. The doctor that contacted me, who worked in the prison system, told me that there are inmates who know that they're possessed, that they're having a relationship with these things, and that they actually, I think someone alluded to this before, I think it was Vinny, said that people have heightened, well, this is what the doctor told me. They said stronger, heightened psychic awareness, and they don't need to sleep as much. And really what that is the parasite is looping back some of that energy into the person that they're possessing. So it's not a symbiotic relationship, but it is a relationship. This is, like they say, selling your soul to the devil. These people that you're talking about doing these things, the rush of, it's not just energy they're actually getting a heightened sense of sexual, awareness, psychic and sexual awareness. And it's because that the parasite is feeding off of them and giving some of it back to the host, so it can be a more effective front person for them.
So it's kind of like what was it? I play this game called Dawn of War. It's based on a future society about 40,000 years in the future. One of the armies within this thing are called Chaos, and what the motivation behind its soldiers is to obtain higher levels within the Chaos hierarchy, to obtain power of the dark gods. And essentially, this is what they achieve. They actually achieve more strength, more power and more viciousness as they ascend up the rankings of Chaos, and this is the reason for their devotion, is because and the reason for their defection from their original legions of soldiers that worked for the Empire of Man, is because they felt that they were capable of actually being, in reality, rewarded for their faith in the dark gods rather than their faith in what they believed to be a false god, which was the Emperor of Man.
Well, there's a perfect example of essentially the Archontic agenda advertising. for
recruiting.
Itself.
Absolutely.
That's the recruitment tool. That's a way to indoctrinate people into thinking that, if I can sell my soul, well, I'm not really using that. If I can get some power out of the deal, sure, I'll go for it.
Now, incidentally, the symbol of the Empire of Man, which are allegedly the good guys in this scenario, is a two-headed eagle, which is the symbol of the 33rd degree of Freemasonry. And Whistleblower has come out, James Wright, in fact, I was speaking with him last night, saying that once you obtain the 33rd degree, he said it is guaranteed that you are open and quite likely demon-possessed at that point.
Oh, well, it starts a lot sooner than that, but
yes, it does.
He says that at the 33rd, that's when it's guaranteed that you are.
There's no turning back.
There's no turning back. That's when you're fully possessed. Anybody beneath that, there's a possibility of turning back, but not once you reach the 33rd degree.
Look,
okay. Well,
since you brought it up, Cameron, Cameron, I haven't shared this with you yet, but one of the things I found out about the jinn is that Solomon had employed them, and he had somehow contained them, sort of like, the legend of you put a genie in a bottle.
Right.
Somehow Solomon was into magic, if you recall, right? So he found some way to contain these jinn in a bottle or container, and
I once drank gin that was contained in a bottle.
Now, Vinny, you got to be serious for just a moment with me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The punchline is this, if you have to have one. Solomon is famous in Masonic circles for building his temple, right? Except he didn't build it. In the lore, there's this mythical figure named Hiram Abiff, who was murdered by two thugs who were trying to get the secret of how he built a temple without a hammer or nails. Are you familiar with this? You heard this story?
No.
Okay, so if you're an initiate, they're saying you become Hiram Abiff, and you're going to learn the secret of how he built the temple, how Hiram Abiff never existed. It's just a front. Actually, as I said, what I found out recently is that Solomon used the jinn, and they built the temple. They manifested this for him. It's one of the reasons it fell, because everything they do is unsustainable. It's parasitic / predatory. It's not symbiotic. It's not sustainable.
There's an organic equivalent to this. It's actually cancer. Cancer, via its makeup, would actually live forever if it didn't kill the host.
Correct, because the cells keep dividing and dividing and dividing. Unlike somatic cells in our body, you're right, they don't. Stem cells are the only ones that actually keep replicating infinitely. So you're right. Something's been switched off. Here's, if you can indulge me for a minute, this is my understanding of the backstory of humanity, that originally this was a perfect universe. And at some point, some of our ancestors literally ventured out of this universe through some sort of Stargate or wormhole. They were warned not to go, but they did it anyway, thinking they would be fine. Once they got there, they went mad. I know now that what had happened is that they literally became infested, and then when they got back, they were absolutely insane, and they went on a spree, just a rampage. They became the scourge, and they started to spread the infection, and they literally destroyed entire solar systems. And in fact, when they came to this solar system, it was a paradise. All life in especially this world, it was a perfect biosphere. All life was just gigantic. Even a dragonfly had a 6-foot wingspan, right? People lived to be very long. They were peaceful. There was no war or disease up until the time that the fallen ones came. They destroyed this planet, and they killed millions of people, and they enslaved whoever they could capture, and whatever DNA they could capture, they manipulated. So this whole thing about the Sumerian gods, they were actually false gods in the sense that they had descended into darkness, and all they wanted was a slave species that would serve them. So they don't create, they only manipulate. And that's the problem. They've been here for thousands of years. And they lie to us. They can't tell the truth either, and they can't come out of the closet, so to speak. And if they do, like we were saying earlier, I think Cameron mentioned, if you see this coming, suddenly, like the Vatican has been intimating that they want to make nice with aliens and that they may actually be free of sin, well, they better prove it. They better have some proof of this, because my whole thing, if you've ever followed my research in Washington D.C., somebody's been coming. UFOs, extraterrestrials have been in Washington D.C. for a long time, and they're manipulating things from behind the scenes. This is where the story of The Exorcist actually comes from. It's a boy who was possessed in 1948. He was a 13-year-old boy. The Vatican had to intervene, and there was multiple exorcisms performed on the boy in Washington D.C. and Chicago until he was clear. But was he clear? I mean, they're obviously, all the exorcisms they're doing are not working. They're actually on the rise. The number of them is on the rise, so they're completely ineffective.
Can I interject?
Go ahead.
Because there are many within the Christian movement who believe that the beast, as referred to in the Bible, actually is the Vatican. So if they're attempting on that basis, and it may or may not be true, but on that basis, if they're actually performing exorcisms, maybe they're actually simply trying to give more power to these entities that they truly worship.
Well, in the 60s, their lead exorcist, Father Gabriel Amorth, has said that Satan had infiltrated the Vatican at that time. I mean, I don't know. But he has recently come out and said that that these things are the frequency of exorcisms is on the rise, and yet, sort of like the pedophilia that's going on, it's being largely ignored by the Vatican. And that disturbs me. I find that very disturbing indeed.
I think that the signature of the Archons is patriarchal dominated religions, which the Vatican is a clear example of. It's part of the problem.
All right, well, we'll be right back after the break, ladies and... This is going really fast. We've already been here for like nearly an hour and 20 minutes, and it's just... Back in a minute, ladies and gentlemen. Don't you go anywhere. You might miss it. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show. Okay, we're going to spend the last two segments talking about defensive and offensive tactics against the archontic entities. We have a list of words here, and we're going to have to go through them really quickly in order to cover them. I think we might not even get to the end of the list. Okay, first is shielding. Who would like to take that one up?
Well, I'll jump on that real quick. So you need to find a method that works for you. Use some form of geometry that works for you. I have a couple of articles on my blog at ascensionhelp.com of how to shield. Essentially, it's a matter of making your energy field as solid and sovereign and impenetrable as possible.
Okay, and how would you go about that?
Well, it starts with connecting with your higher self. You connect with Mother Earth. You get the core of your heart connected to the core of the planet, and then you generate a geometric shape around yourself. I like the octahedron as a starting point, which is 2 pyramids base to base. It's one of the platonic solids. From octahedrons, then I'll put a sphere around that, and then you can put, if you want to keep going, you can keep adding shapes. You can add a cube. You can keep going in layers. It depends on how fancy you want to get. But at the very base level, you want to at least be visualizing a golden sphere of light around yourself, and declare that you are sovereign within that field.
Like a circle of protection based on faith, not entirely dissimilar from how a Christian believes that Jesus will save them, kind of thing.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you the difference though, is if you're always looking for someone else to save you, you can never save yourself. And that's not a good thing. It's not a good thing because what I was trying to tell you before, we're all gods in the state of becoming. We're all seeds of light. Our souls are seeds of light. And this is just one of an infinite number of universes that were born out of very mature seeds of light. It's an organic process. It's a holographic fractal. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
And that's what we mean by obtaining the higher self. Now,
Yep.
the word sovereign. Who'd like to talk on that? In fact, we already covered that, didn't we, earlier? Okay, next word is love. Eve, would you like to weigh in here?
Well, I mean, love is definitely the answer for so many things. But one of the things that one has to do really to even receive love or give love is to heal one's own wounds of the heart and the soul. And that needs to happen so that our blind spots are removed and we can perceive what's happening and be able to give and receive love more freely. So I'm actually a proponent of self-empowerment and really trying not to seek outside yourself for help from any other deities if you can, just connecting deeply with your soul and with like what I call the divine feminine and the intelligence of the living planet. And then that helps give you much more power, and realizing your own empowerment is a greater confidence builder and really helps you. Otherwise, you're going to be running from one shaman to the next or one exorcist to the next, and sometimes these things just don't help. So really connecting and then taking responsibility for healing your own self.
Incidentally, the American Medical Journal also states that where you're likely to find psychopaths is religious gurus.
Or
Oh, that was a
psychiatrist.
big one. Yeah, that was in my book. Like a large percentage of the psychopath types that are hosted were gurus or some kind of religious minister or claiming to be so. And that's really high on the list, those types.
Now, next word is creating love in your environment. How exactly do you accomplish that?
Well, it starts with yourself, with your relationships, right? You have to love yourself. You have to heal the pain of your past, like Evie mentioned, and then find people that are willing to do the same thing for themselves. Because if you're with someone who refuses to work on themselves, refuses to heal, they're going to be constantly pulling you down and blaming you for their own emotional state. So associate with people that are willing to do the work on themselves and willing to love themselves. That way you can love each other from not a place of needing love, but rather extending and expressing a natural outflow of expansive love.
I think that's one of the reasons that Christ admonished us to love our enemies. First, love your neighbor, but also love your enemy, because actually what the Archons feed on is when we hate our enemies or hate anyone or hate, period. So loving the enemy actually diffuses. It's one of the techniques, one of the tools we can use. It's difficult. It's easier for me to say that than actually do it sometimes, I know. But it's just something I highly recommend to people to consider doing that on a regular basis.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I absolutely love David Rockefeller. He's my homie. I will snuggle him with big nice bear hugs.
I'm sorry. Good on you, mate.
You know, and it's hard to do that. I mean, it's really hard to love your enemies unless you've gone through your own healing process. And part of that really is the grieving process, which I go into in my book, The Dark Side of Cupid, because a lot of times people actually omit their own grieving process. And if you omit that aspect of your healing, you know, giving and receiving love is not as easy. And then you're not as empowered.
Now, also, this means, of course, loving thy enemy isn't necessarily about approaching them and trying to help them and things like that. It's just about sort of just having that love for them, just saying, you know, that's fine, you know, I love you anyway, and so on and so forth. But I'm not going to associate with you whatsoever because you're going to try and kill me and corrupt me otherwise, right? Or
It's also about taking responsibility for your emotional state. That's part of being sovereign. Instead of letting them provoke you or distract you from who and what you really are and your life's purpose as a god in a state of becoming, every time they get you angry, you just convert it, you transmute it, you just transmute it to a love vibration instead of hatred.
That's what the
It's
kind of the
hard,
golden
though.
circle around you is about. Like ancient magi talked about circles of protection that they were capable of casting around themselves to protect them from dark spells and so on and so forth, right?
It is, but it's also, I think, it's allegorically speaking, it's part of what alchemy is about. Transmuting lead to gold.
And speaking of transmuting lead to gold, focus on joy is the next words that we have here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I'm really good at this because I'm capable of turning. Like, look at this. People come to me and they're in a real bad state. Okay, I've had people on the verge of crying, on the verge of committing suicide, on the verge of just attacking others, and I'm capable of, through listening, through caring, through giving of myself and my own energy to them, completely flipping it around. And even after only a few minutes of conversation with me, sometimes I can change your entire worldview from everything's against me, nothing is worth living, to, hey, you know what? Stuff ain't that bad after all.
Yeah, we all need some support. Actually, the random acts of kindness are extremely powerful. And, as far as uniting with, giving that sense of connection, of unity with another human being is something that the Archons hate. They fear it. They do not want us to unite. They're constantly provoking us and turning one against the other, divide and conquer.
Yeah, that's so true. The support and the community and empathic communication is really important, and that helps so much. Just to have someone to talk
Eve,
to.
can you clarify as well, because this is part of the divine feminine, isn't it?
Well, yes, it's connecting and relationship and community and support and, the sacredness of life, and really valuing those things in our community and our relationships, which has really been thrown out the window in a rushed Western society. It's people are not connecting with one another anymore. They're staying on their cell phones or their TV or their computer, and they're not really connecting one-on-one, speaking the truth and compassionately communicating. So that's a real big part.
Can I also say that there's also a suppression of the divine masculine as well? Robert, would you be able to explain, what's the difference here? Well, not necessarily the difference, but what are the aspects of the divine masculine here? Because I thought it was like a protection kind of thing.
No.
Providing or have I
nurturing.
Nurturing.
I have a teenage son, and I raised him because my wife is working in a corporate setting. I was too, but hey, she makes more money, so I work at home. Why not? And I've seen a huge difference because I did not have that connection with my father. And I think it diminished me greatly until I finally resolved my issues internally and then externally with my father. So I do believe there has been a movement towards what they call stay-at-home dads. And that level of nurturing for any child, whether it be a boy or a girl, is highly important to know that you're there to protect them, but also to guide them, to show them boundaries and also praise. It's really important for the nurturing, the development of that particular child into a full-blown, very intact adult.
Well, you need both of those divine aspects in order to become a complete whole, don't you?
Correct.
Boys need the divine feminine and the divine masculine just as much as girls do.
Of course, absolutely. But
which is incidentally why the Archons are trying to destroy the family unit.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that. They're diminishing the role of a father as being insignificant, at least in Western culture, in the media. They're making fathers look very inept and inconsequential, and that's not true.
Peter Griffin and Homer Simpson.
Absolutely. No, actually, Family Guy, because I'm in Rhode Island. I see that character is I used to think that was a cartoon until I moved here. It's actually a documentary. Sorry to say. Sorry, folks. Rhode Island, New Englanders, love you guys. It's my new home, but wow, there's a lot of strangeness going on here. So, yeah. Anyway.
All right. Hence the talking dogs on a leash. Incidentally.
Yes.
Now.
Yeah. Right.
Most of them wear New York City police uniforms. Now, next word we have on the list is connect to nature. And Cameron, I'd like your perspective on this because you've actually moved into the woods.
Yes, I live in the woods. I have for many years, and I kind of take it for granted, but it's so important that you connect with nature, that you get your bare feet on the ground somewhere. Even if you're in a city, find a park or in your backyard, if you have lucky enough to have a yard in the city or whatever. Get your feet on the ground, close your eyes, and sync up your heart with the heart of the planet, the very core of Mother Earth, because she is the mother of humanity. She is an incredibly powerful being. And when you can listen to her, she'll help you. She will guide you. She will give you insight. She will strengthen your energy field so you'll be less susceptible to ankle biter intrusions. Sorry, I call the Archons ankle biters because calling them Archon gives them, I think, a little too much authority. So I like to laugh at them, call them ankle biters, tease them a bit. It helps to kind of burst their bubble. But when you're connecting with Mother Earth, she will strengthen you against any form of opposition.
And indeed, part of the mechanism for this is to turn off your fracking cell phone, get away from cell phone towers, EMF radiation. And indeed, those of you who are listening online or watching this on YouTube, you can go to my YouTube channel, Mr. News Guerrilla Media, and watch the interview with Paul Waddell, Waddell. He's one of only 3 people in New Zealand who's qualified to test for EMF radiation, and the amount of information that he disclosed during that program about the effects of this on your body is absolutely startling. Okay, and this is coming from a radio show host like me who hears every day about how we're being penetrated by ruthless criminal sociopaths and how they're trying to hatch their schemes to exterminate us. And he made me freak out all over again, like I'd never heard it before. So facing your own shadow is next. Eve, do you want to take that one?
Oh, yes. Well, that's absolutely true, because our own shadow is really our own unhealed wounds from the past, and it could even be former lifetimes. And that stays in the subconscious, and then it projects outward. So whenever there's pain that's not being addressed or not conscious, then that will be projected out and creating a weakness and a blank spot in our perception, so that, these entities and beings could attack us. So really facing our own darkness is a really big way of dealing with it, and really loving ourself and loving and healing that part of ourself. So
and
that's really important.
And one thing that helps with that is our next word here: getting out of bad relationships.
Absolutely. You have to set boundaries against those who are harmful to relating in a healthy, harmonious way, and really set firm boundaries. You just can't allow that, which means, sometimes isolating yourself and healing in nature until you get back involved in relationships. And you have to be strong enough in yourself and your own connection with nature before you get involved with others sometimes, just to build that strength again.
Okay, and forgiveness. This is another one, and we only have one more word left, and we've got 2 minutes. We might have actually covered all of these defensive mechanisms in a segment. That's good. Robert, what about forgiveness?
It's one of the toughest, I find, but it's one of the most profoundly healing things that you can do. I mean, you have to be genuine about it. Forgive yourself first. That's how I did it. Start with forgiving yourself first, and then work genuinely. Forgive yourself, and then you can start forgiving others. And what it does is it just drops a lot of the baggage that we tend to carry around, and which drains our energy and weakens us.
And last one here: apologies. Archons, psychopaths, not only don't apologize, they can't.
No, they always justify their actions or blame others. And, one of the things I was saying on the break that you didn't hear, Vinny, is some people have accused me of saying, you know what, all you're doing is creating a scapegoat for bad behavior. And I say, no, I'm actually saying that we have to be even more responsible for our emotional state and our actions, because we know, as awake beings, we know the real game here. So it's incumbent upon us and anybody who's awake to actually take more responsibility. A greater responsibility is placed on us once you know what's really going on here.
Now, this is also a way that you can identify these creatures within your midst. If they've done something to you and you ask them to apologize and they don't, that's a big, big red flag. May not be 100% kind of, I can just suddenly write them off as a psychopath. But if they've never apologized to you for anything, ever, always blame somebody else. Always say that I'm sorry that you feel that way about it, and put it back on you. then it's becoming a heck of a lot clearer, and a whole bunch of people in my circle of friends suddenly come to mind for some reason. We'll be right back after the break at the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show, broadcasting live on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. And by the way, I've got to give big ups, to my board op, and in fact, the board op at American Freedom Radio at the moment. Have the fading in and out of the show today, the ad breaks, and even off air. He has shown remarkable talent, skill, and discipline that you would expect from a producer of the highest caliber. And I just big ups, respect, salute, and whatnot for that, bro. Wicked job. It's been full on professional today, by all means and standards. Now, we only have one more segment left, only a few minutes, so. We kind of want to open this up to sort of closing statements, wisdom, philosophy, something important, something personal, something meaningful. I don't know what anybody's going to say with such an open-ended question, and because the talent in this room is such, I think it would be impossible for me to know what you're going to say, and hence why I'm asking the question, because I want to know the answer. So,
ladies first.
Yeah.
I'll just go ahead and shoot. Is that what's worked for me in my life is really actually working on thinking more positive and doing my own healing work, connecting with the divine feminine, and really tuning into love, a lot of love and bliss that's been entering my life through connecting with the earth. And when I can maintain that state and stay in that frequency with friends and relationships, I feel much more protected. I'm also able to help my clients better. So really maintaining that level of beingness certainly helps.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Cameron.
Well, I'm going to say...
By the way, don't feel like you need to cut yourself short or anything. You know, we've got a number of minutes that you can speak each.
Okay. So I'm going to say to get to know who you really are, get rid of who you think you are, because that's not really you. That's just an identity that you formed in this life, a conception of yourself based on a limited understanding, based on being born in a state of amnesia. So work on getting rid, or at least paring down, that false identity so that the real you can emerge, so that you can understand who and what you really are, so that you can understand that you are a sovereign, powerful being, and that you're here for a specific purpose, and that you are in partnership with, you are in an ecstatic dance with this beautiful planet. You are part of her, you are emanating from her, and you are part of the solution to this problem, to the archontic dilemma. Human beings are action takers. We are the ones that will take the action that will eventually result in the removal of these beings from, let's say, the universe as we perceive it to be. So get deep into yourself, find all of the blocks that are preventing you from knowing who you are, find all of the stored frozen emotions that are locked in the subconscious, take your power back from them, reclaim that energy so that you can be unified, whole, sovereign, and loving. And loving yourself, then turn that love around, love those around you, set your healthy boundaries. If someone is a taker of your energy, cut them off. Do it lovingly, but set that boundary, and populate your life with the type of people that you want to be exposed to, the type of people that you would like to have rub off on you.
Can I interject here, Cameron?
Sure.
This is what YouTube and Facebook and Skype really are great for me, because they have something called a block function. Somebody comes in, they're sucking your energy, they're insulting you, they're being a douchebag. Block! And you never hear from them again. Oh, bless it.
Right. Now, unfortunately, you can't always block the trolls in your real life quite so easily, but nonetheless, you still should set that healthy boundary. Just tell them, look, this isn't working out. I need a break. And maybe that break will last a little while, maybe it'll be permanent, but either way, I need a break from you. And just put it out there. The worst that can happen is that they're going to psychically bombard you. But if you know a few techniques, I give quite a few techniques away at ascensionhelp.com. So you can go there and make those part of your energetic maintenance packet, if you will.
And also that last segment.
Maintain your energy. That's really important. Keep your energy clear, keep yourself focused, and don't let the haters drag you down.
Also, I think that last segment, I'm going to put that in as a short clip, because those are all the techniques that we could really come up with off the top of our heads of how to deal with these creatures. Robert.
Yes, it's important for us. It's very important for us to realize who we are, why we're here, and where we're going. And that's why I was saying before, the process of creation is holographic fractal. And the example I use is you can hold an entire oak tree in your hand in the form of an acorn. When you place it in the ground, it becomes a mighty oak tree that eventually, when it's mature enough, it drops thousands of acorns. Now, not every one of those acorns will develop into a tree, but they could, right? And that's the analogy I use for our souls. We are all seeds of light. And we were born when a particular mature soul left its parent universe, moved off into space, which I believe is infinite, and it bloomed. And in that blooming process, everything in this universe was born, including us. This is the thing about a hologram. You can break it again and again and again, and it always has this pattern of energy or information repeating itself again and again, infinitely. Each time it's a little different, sort of like a snowflake. Each one is different, but it's still a snowflake. Well, that's true for our souls. We are seeds of light. We are gods in a state of becoming. And our consciousness is key to all this, because consciousness is primary, despite what we're being taught or lied to about there is no designer, there is no consciousness. It sort of just randomly occurs, right? It's a mutation. It's all mutants. We're all mutants. But in fact, consciousness is primary. Our ability to visualize or conceive things in the mind, it's not a process of the brain. It's part of our soul. Our soul is actually consciousness, energy, and matter. We don't always project ourselves into a body, but we are always an intelligent living energy. So actually everything, it turns out, is consciousness, energy, and matter, which is the same thing in different phase states or vibratory rates. Just like a drop of water can be a solid, liquid, or gas, consciousness can be consciousness, pure consciousness, energy, or matter. So these are very important things. I think we're disoriented, and we need to know these things. And so these conversations are just not idle gossip or speculation. I think this is actually very empowering. The fact that we came together, took the time and energy, and focused our consciousness towards the higher purpose of our not evolution or ascending. I think we are actually always going to be in a state of becoming. Our growth has been impeded by these parasites, and as we become aware of it and we take steps, we take actions to remedy the situation, to heal ourselves and others, then I think we're going to make up for all the ground we've lost, and actually then some. I really think this is actually strengthening us. I've seen this happen in my life so many times, that every time they've attacked me, it's actually motivated me in a way that I probably, I guarantee you I wouldn't have been sitting up on that mountain meditating like my life depended on it that night if they hadn't attacked me. I probably would have been doing a mundane thing like watching television, drinking beer. Maybe not that bad, but I mean, I'm saying, right? I mean, just a normal thing as a 25-year-old guy chasing girls and wanting to have fun, right? Not sitting up on a mountain meditating like like the
like some
my
form
world's
of
coming
yoga.
to an end. True, indeed, but it was not like I wasn't trying to ascend. I just needed assistance. I was doing something for myself, actually, and I was glad that they assisted me, but they didn't do the work for me. They just have guided me through the lesson plan, like a teacher. They don't do the lessons for you. They give you the lesson plan, and they say, okay, well, you missed something here. You need to go back over that. I mean, that's what the divine ones do for us.
Now,
Anyway.
there's something this has actually reminded me of in this last segment here, where you've been giving your closing statements. It's actually the start of a poem by William Blake, and I want you to do something with me right now, ladies and gentlemen. If you're not driving, and also the guests on the show, I just want you to close your eyes for a second and just listen to the words of my voice, just for these lines. To see a world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. Okay? That's all. This is something that
Nice.
I believe really kind of encapsulates what we're talking about here to a large degree, because we are infinite consciousness, okay, and there is that much potential that within each and every one of us, that even though we may appear to be a grain of sand, we can be an entire world. Even though we may just be one little flower that looks pretty, we can be heaven. We can hold infinity in our very hands, and eternity within any small space of time. That's why this is the fastest 2 hours in talk radio. That's why it rushes by so quickly. We've just done eternity in 2 hours. Okay. So I hope you've all enjoyed this show, and I really want to appreciate, show my appreciation not only to our producer Adam for his incredibly professional work for producing today's show, but also Mel Ryan, who actually put this little roundtable together and has indeed been organising some of the guests for me of late. I really appreciate that, because it's when we work together that we can accomplish more than any one of us can do on our own. And it ain't about ego. It ain't about, oh, I'm the host, so I'm better than you. It's about, I can't accomplish everything that I want to without you. And I want to let you guys know that I really appreciate your wisdom and your insight and all of your work, what little of it that I've experienced here today. Eve Lorgen from evelorgen.com, Robert Stanley from unicusmagazine.com, and Cameron Day from ascensionhelp.com have been my guests. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope you, like every reasonable person should take this show to heart. Let's hope that the love that we use to defend ourselves from scumbaggery becomes infinite as well. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again sometime at thevinnieeastwoodshow.com.
No matter where you live, globalism affects you. Did you know that the Vinny Eastwood Show has more subscribers than New Zealand Herald TV and is New Zealand's most popular YouTube news channel, where warm-hearted humour and a list of awesome guests talk about crucial issues which the mainstream media ignore? A show where you, the listener, can phone up with questions, comments and suggestions of guests. Vinny is building a hub to connect truthers with raw information they need to become active. He can help you gain further skills such as website building, producing audio and video, and creating revenue streams in your own multimedia environment. Because Vinny supports such a wide range of people in the truth movement, he is not government or corporate backed and relies entirely on your donations. Give now, give generously, or subscribe for $10 a month for access to ad-free video archives. Just visit thevinnieeastwoodshow.com and click donate.